morning, everyone. So before we get into the program, there is one resource that I want to make sure everyone here knows about, and that is 988. Who here has heard of 988 before? Awesome. So there was a recent poll that found about 80% of Americans don't know what 988 is. So I'm here to tell you about it if you haven't heard of it. 988 is the new easy to remember, easy to dial number that connects you to the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. You can dial it from any phone. You can text it from any phone if you don't like phone calls. You also can chat online. And there are trained counselors working 24/7 to answer your calls. A lot of people wonder when they should reach out to 988, and I've heard a lot of people say, I'm not sure if it's really bad enough. So 988, to reach out, you don't necessarily have to be in suicidal crisis. It's there for people who are in any kind of emotional distress, including people who are struggling with substances. You also can reach out to 988 if you're worried about someone else and you don't know what to do. So if there's one thing that you remember today, please remember the number 988, maybe tell someone else about it. And there are people there waiting to talk to you. I've called it for myself. I've called it for other people. And we want everyone to know that there's a place that they can reach out to. It's now my pleasure to introduce our first speaker for the day, Charlotte Lumby from Insight Agency for Change.
Thank you, Erin. I have notes because I have a really specific message that I want to share today, and sometimes I can get off the road there with it. So first, I want to say thank you so much for each and every one of you being here, for your commitment to yourself, your communities. I'm honored to have the opportunity to share. Hello. Ooh, that was loud. Okay. I'm not sure if the words came out of my mouth to thank Erin for asking me to speak today. It's just such an honor to be here. And my goal is to extend my hope to each and every one of you who showed up today. As I've walked into this event the last couple of years, I'm reminded each time of our ability to hold space for more than one thing at a time. Unimaginable pain, unforgettable loss, fear, joy, hope, camaraderie, community. It's a reminder that in this complex human experience, we have waves of emotions, thoughts, and feelings, all of which have brought us here today. It's brought us together. Suicide, death and loss, survival, and hope. In this space, we are able to receive acknowledgement and understanding that is accomplished just by standing next to each other, by being embraced by individuals who in some way or another had their lives touched by suicide. Hope that we can learn together and grow together and help each other in our darkest moments. Resilience. It's my belief that we can walk together through the pain, sorrow, fear, and loss, and learn how to help others do the same. Honestly, if you would have asked me 25 years ago if I'd be standing up here today doing something like this, I would have told you no way. That's not happening. My first loss by suicide was as a young girl when I lost my grandmother, and honestly, I don't think I was really old enough to understand what that meant, and I'm pretty sure the word suicide was never used. What I could understand very clearly was the devastating loss and pain. Little did I know that it would only be a matter of time before my life was touched by suicide again, and at 24 years old and 9 months pregnant, I became a widow when I lost my husband to suicide. To be honest, I don't really remember struggling with thoughts of suicide myself, even through all of that loss. However, when I gave birth to my daughter a week later on the night of my husband's funeral, and they put her in my arms, the first thing I remember thinking is, I've got this. I can do this. And it makes me wonder still to this day if that was my thought away from suicide. I was lucky enough to have an amazing support system. I had a doctor who recognized it right up front, and I know we're not all that lucky. I had a best friend who dragged me into a therapist that I then saw for over 20 years. And I had a next door neighbor that would become a really close friend and that I would learn had gone through the same thing as me. For the first time in my life, I realized I wasn't the only one that was experiencing this loss. All of those things taught me the meaning of community and the power and the strength that comes from that. It was a strength I would need to call on again 15 years later, after my daughter, Jordan, had gone through open heart surgery at 13 and had significant mental health changes afterwards that led to addiction. And her addiction led to suicide ideation and behaviors. All of those things led her to spending time in a pediatric psychiatric unit, along with many other facilities. Thankfully, she was able to find her way out of that with sobriety, and now practices recovery for more than 3 years with mental health and substance use. Jordan's life is now circled by her community of recovery. Hope, resilience, survival, all of these things are possible even amongst intergenerational trauma. A mom and her daughter are living proof. A mom and her daughter are living proof that this community that's standing here today matters. While she has spent the last 3 years navigating recovery, myself, my best friend, my sister from another mister that's standing on that lawn right there, have built Insight Agency for Change. Our hope is to inspire hope, encourage individual and collective action, and create change for healthy communities where all people can strive. The majority of our work is rooted in suicide awareness. How do we know? What are the signs? What are the symptoms? How do we ask directly? Suicide intervention. How do we guide someone towards choosing safety for now? And postvention. How do we support communities when they've suffered a loss? None of that would have been possible, not for one single minute, if I wasn't surrounded by community. Again, each and every one of you standing here today. Professionals, friends, my best friend, my family, my significant other. He likes to call it Insight Agency for James because he's always helping us with events and he's currently running the booth. My 16-year-old daughter who's sitting back there and is trained in awareness and intervention. My 22-year-old daughter. My mother-in-law, all my family and friends that support me. And I just want to remind you, we're all here to support each other. If one person, one little old person like me can be impacted by suicide in so many different ways, I think it's easy to believe that most of us in our lifetime will be impacted by suicide. So I started this talk by saying that my goal was that my hope would extend to each and every one of you. So what exactly does that mean? I hope that you leave this space today feeling acknowledged and understood with a spark of your own hope. I see you. I see your resiliency shining through as you stand here today. I hope that today helps us all remember the power and the beauty that communities just like this create. This is a community in which we can hold space for each other, for love, loss, pain, sorrow, and survival, and we can do it together. A community in which we can continue the silence and stigma being decreased around the topic of mental health and suicide, and we can do it together. A community in which we can spread our wings of experience and knowledge and help guide others to help others, and we can do it together. A community of hope, healing oracles, peacefully embracing our world, and we can do it together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Charlotte. Charlotte did my very first suicide prevention training when I started this work. Highly recommend it. Our next speaker is Emerson Corella. Emerson, would you like to come up?
Firstly, thank you to Charlotte and Aaron for both sharing their stories. So, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Emerson Corella, and I'm just a high schooler. And I was just a high schooler with no connection to suicide. I haven't struggled myself. I haven't witnessed someone personally struggling. But I knew the impact that it had upon our families. I never thought that a journey 2 years ago, when I set out to understand what the community was going through, that I would find the immediate need for support and the support that was already here. Now, today is a special day. Now, it's a special day for two reasons. First, it's my 18th birthday. And I cannot think of a better thing to be doing for my birthday than supporting my community, especially my community who is so strong and so supportive of everyone around here. The sheer amount of people I see out here is humbling, and I love to see that. The second reason this is a very special day is because all of us have come here together to break down the stigma around mental health and around suicidal ideation. We've come together to say it is okay to struggle and it's okay to talk about it. Now, I was just 17 yesterday, and when I started this journey 2 years ago, I would never have the confidence to come up here and talk in front of this many people unless I knew the need for it, and there is a need for it. A while back, what started this whole journey for me was I approached Kaiser City Council, and I told them that youth need help. We need help in our mental struggles, we need help with emotional support, and we need better support systems in our schools. And I tried to rally a cause around them, but the support didn't come from Kaiser. The support came from you guys. I saw a group of high schoolers who I would have never thought would come speak in front of government, come up and support each other. And I see this community coming together to demand further action so that we are getting the support we need. Our support system comes from each other, and I've seen that emulate itself throughout every single one of you. So that's why today's special to me. I want to talk about the main efforts that I've been working on personally and that I know many of the great people in this crowd have been working on. Right now, we're forwarding progress to get peer supports within our schools so that now, if you see someone struggling in the schools, we have high schoolers automatically trained to be able to respond. They are there to provide support for their fellow peers. We have efforts working in the county to where they are finally realizing this is a pressing need for us. And lastly, we have support even more within our community and within our family to where we aren't alone. We're breaking down the stigma every day. And that to me is the most brilliant thing out of all of this, is that we can have this community from Salem. We can have a walk in Eugene, we can have a walk in Portland, Medford, wherever we want. And there's a community ready to step forward and break down the stigma every part of the way. Now, the thing I want to leave off on is to thank every single one of you for coming out here and taking the first brave step to combating suicide in our community. By coming out here today, you're saying that you stand against and for our community, uplifting each other so that no one's going to be left alone. Now, when you go back to your homes, we go back to our communities, we need to make sure we're emulating that within ourselves. If you see someone struggling, we're there to lift them up. We need to be the example for our community to say we aren't alone anymore. And that is what we can do together. So I ask you, when you go home today, think about, who can I benefit? How can I benefit myself? How can I give someone support who hasn't had that support in the past? And how can I break down those barriers for someone else? I see it here, so I know it is possible. Let's represent that in the rest of our community and forward this adventure together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emerson, and to Charlotte as well. I'd now like to invite our bead ceremony participants to come up to the stage. You know who you are, hopefully. So as you can tell just from those two speakers, there are a lot of different reasons that people come to events like this. Each of us has our own story and our own reason for being here. Hold on, I'm gonna pass off the emotional support dog. And we have beads to represent those connections to the cause. We keep them as a symbol, a visible symbol to have in our sight and in our hearts. So now we're going to move into the bead ceremony, and I invite you, as I call out your bead color, to hold your own beads high so we can see who you're walking for today. White beads symbolize the loss of a child. Wearing white beads today is Tamala. Tamala lost her son Matt to suicide in 2017. He had a huge smile, he was incredibly funny, and his favorite color was pink. If you're wearing white beads, please raise them as we take a moment of silence for the children we have lost. Next is red. Red beads represent the loss of a partner or spouse. Wearing red beads today is Charlotte Lumby. Charlotte lost her husband, Shane, to suicide in 2000 at just 29 years old. He was a friend, a son, a husband, and a father to a daughter who was yet to be born. If you have red beads, please raise them up for a moment of silence to remember the partners and spouses who are no longer here. Our next color is gold. Gold symbolizes the loss of a parent. Wearing gold beads today is Billy, who lost her mother to suicide when she was 15 years old. Her mom was funny, a wonderful baker, and often won ribbons and prizes for her baking. If you are wearing gold beads, please raise them up with me for a moment of silence for the mothers and fathers who are no longer here. Purple symbolizes the loss of a friend or a relative. Wearing purple beads today is Alicia. She has lost her brother David, her Aunt Shari, her Aunt Diane, her friend Craig, and her friend Deani. If you are wearing purple beads today, please hold them up. And let's take a moment to remember the friends and relatives who we have lost. Orange beads symbolize the loss of a sibling. Wearing orange beads today is Miley Halverson from the AFSP Oregon Board. Miley lost her brother to suicide in 2012 and discovered AFSP when she attended her first Survivor Day that year. She hopes we reduce the rate of suicide so that no one experiences the same pain and loss that she did. If orange is your color, please raise up your beads and take a moment of silence for the siblings who are no longer with us. Silver symbolizes the loss of military or first responders. Wearing silver beads today are Becky and Jeremiah, who work in suicide prevention for the VA, and Jeremiah is a Marine veteran. If silver is your color, we honor your loved ones and we thank them for their service. If you are wearing silver beads, please raise them up in a moment of silence for the brave military and first responders we have lost. Next is rainbow. This is our first year having rainbow beads at the walk, and we introduced them to recognize the disproportionate effect that suicide has on the LGBTQ+ community. LGBTQ+ youth are 4 times more likely to attempt suicide than their peers, and that works out to a suicide attempt every 45 seconds. Wearing rainbow beads is Sam Havens, AFSP board member. Sam is bisexual, and her husband is transgender. If you are wearing rainbow beads, either for yourself or in support of someone else, please raise them up. We thank you for being here. Green beads symbolize a past suicide attempt or a past or current personal struggle with mental health. Green is my color. If you are wearing green beads, I know how scary it can be to put them on in front of other people, and I know how hard it can be to ask for help. Being here today makes you brave, and I am so glad that you came. If green is your color, please raise your beads high. I am so glad to have you with us in this fight, and your bravery shows others that they are not alone. Thank you. Teal beads represent those who support family and friends with mental health conditions. Wearing teal beads today is Emerson, who spoke earlier. As you can tell, Emerson has taken on a dedication to fighting for a world without suicide, and he knew that there were family and friends out there who needed support, even if he didn't know them personally. Emerson, we're so lucky to have people like you fighting for those who struggle. If you're wearing teal beads, please raise them up for our friends and loved ones. And blue beads symbolize support of suicide prevention. And even if you didn't pick up blue beads yet, you deserve them today because you're here to support suicide prevention. And I invite you to make sure to pick them up on the way out. Wearing blue beads today is Mateo Elijah Lopez Perry, held by his mother, Angela, the chair of the AFSP Oregon Chapter Board. Mateo is 13 days old, and this is his second Out of the Darkness walk. I think that's pretty impressive. Suicide prevention starts with all of us, and it is never too early to start. Everyone, please raise your beads or your hand to show your support of suicide prevention. Thank you all. All right, let's take a moment and take a deep breath. I know I need one. I know that ceremony can be heavy. Unfortunately, one of the things that unites us today is grief, and it is important to make space and time for the feelings that we have and to remember those we lost. And as we turn towards the walk, I invite you to make a turn to our other theme for the day, which is hope. Hope for a stronger community, hope for help for those who need it, and hope for a world without suicide. As you walk together today, I hope you find hope alongside the others who walk with you. And I'd like to end with another quote that comes from that sign over there that I saw this Wednesday when I was out here. It's a quote from the past Oregon Governor Tom McCall, and he said, "Heroes are not giant statues framed against a red sky. They are people who say, 'This is my community, and it is my responsibility to make it better.'" Thank you all for being heroes in the fight to stop suicide.